Hey, Chris, we can probably go ahead.
All right, Art. Yes. Big up my man As One for the sounds. Beat Refinery. We are a DJ school. Is originally located our flagship in the Washington D.C. area. We have locations all around the country at this point. We've got teachers, all walks of life that are helping contribute to the culture and preservation of DJing and turntablism. If you're joining us for the first time, thanks for being here. If you're a student that we've had before, or just a friend, or know of us as a place to get some DJ tips and knowledge, thank you for being here. If you're watching on our social media platforms, our YouTube, Facebook, our Instagram, welcome. We felt it was a good time for all of us to get together and be able to talk about maybe some of the concerns or the worries or anxieties, or even some of the positives and ideas that are just navigating the DJ world, DJ life in this COVID-19 pandemic. Myself, my name is DJ Stylus Chris. I'm one of the co-founders of the Beat Refinery. I've been a DJ for 25 years. I started when I was 6 months old, so that's why the 25 years. And I also have one of my the gigs I love the most. I'm DJ for the Washington Nationals, World Series champ Washington Nationals, and and also DJ for DC United MLS, and been DJing clubs for a long time, and just wanted to really make sure we had a platform, a place to keep the culture of DJing going and preserve the art. And with that, I wanted to introduce some of our instructors and special guests that we have on this panel to talk about what they're going through in their specific COVID-19 weird phase, and kind of share that with you guys. First up, let's introduce my man Zach Z92. What's up, bro?
How's it going? DJs Z92. Zach, either or. Yeah, I'm an instructor, DJ, turntablist, producer, and yeah, I'm part of the Beat Refinery team, and I'm happy to be here talking to you all. So yeah.
Next up, we've got our man that teaches out at the Fulton School, and he is a very talented, mad genius in his lab. If you're looking at his feed right now, you can probably see all kinds of buttons and lights. That is my man Sean J.
What up, DJ World? How are you? DJ Sean J, representing, coming to you live from Baltimore City. Part of Sounds of Baltimore DJ crew, as well as instructor with Beat Refinery, turntablist, producer, basically all the same stuff as Zach, man. I'm just a guy doing some stuff out here.
All right, next I would like to welcome one of our incredibly talented teachers. Not only does she DJ, she can play the viola and a few other instruments. She teaches a myriad of things for Beat Refinery and Bach to Rock, the one and only Alkimist.
Hey, I'm Kim. I've been a DJ professionally full-time for about 10 years now. I'm classically trained, and I teach for Beat Refinery and Bach to Rock.
Thanks, Kim. Next up, we got a brother of ours that is Mr. Fix-It around the Beat Refinery labs. I know he has tuned up several of my turntables personally, and various other DJs and our school. Anything that's broke, we call this man Miles Money. What's up, bro?
How you doing, man? Yeah, I'm Bill, also known as DJ Miles Money. I've been in this for about 10 years now. Actually started the Beat Refinery back in 2010 in the first series of classes, and basically worked my way up through everything that they had there. Basically interned there for a while. And yeah, the reason why people come to me to fix stuff is the first time I ever bought a pair of turntables, one of them had one of the channels was out on it. So I had to figure it out on my own what was going on. YouTube is always your friend with that, but I ended up fixing it and went on to do this stuff now.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. All right, let me introduce the one and only senior instructor, been here since day one with us. His accolades are too long for me to tell you, so I'll let him do it. Mr. DJ As One.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, Art here, As One. Beat Refinery since the beginning. It's been 10 years, 10 good years, man. So I really appreciate you guys and the whole team. Look at this. I mean, this is amazing. You guys have been an amazing part of the whole process. Chris and Geo, you guys, if you guys that don't know, Chris and Geo are the guys. So, you know, thank you guys for having us. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a band geek since 4th grade. Played a bunch of instruments and then found the turntables in high school. And yeah, just never stopped, man. I'm also like the old dog you can't put down when it comes to DJ battling. Even though, yeah, that's that. I don't know.
Speaking of battling, we have been very fortunate, blessed, I would say, to have this gentleman teaching for I think at least 5 or 6 years at the school, if not more now, and the current reigning DMC USA champion, Throdown. What's up, bro?
What up? What up? What up? How's everybody doing? My name's Throdown. My mom calls me Ross. Everyone in this room calls me Ross. Or have you showed up yet? We started 10 minutes ago. I've been teaching at Beat Refinery. I think it's been like 5.5 years almost, and been DJing for almost 20. And you know, I always wanted to get in here. Everyone that you're looking at on the screen in this room, these guys have been some of my biggest influences for I couldn't even tell you how long in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area and beyond. And it was fate that I could finally get in here and be part of the crew. And it's been a journey, and it's been very like, I don't know, like it's really expanded my scope of like my local scene and just really like getting the feedback from each and every one of you, how you feel about DJing and music and your various approaches to it. And it's like all of us combined like Voltron and, you know, contribute our strengths together to make this DJ school and this family what it is. So I think it's really cool that we're all in the same room right now, even though it's a chat room and it's not a room. But you know, so this is a pretty cool treat to be rapping with all you at the same time. Isaac right there, DJ I-Dee. He's calling us all the way from, where are you at right now, dog?
Down under, mate.
Down under, mate. Drinking some stubbies.
Nice transition, Ross.
Yeah, I guess Ross wants my job, so you were supposed to go all the way with that. It's a very special treat to have I-Dee Isaac on this call with us. If you guys don't know, I've known Isaac personally since he was probably
other than our featured special guest. He's our surprise guest.
Yeah, he's our photo bomb. He's our Zoom bomb. He just showed up, and this guy is very special to Geo and myself. But you know, knowing him for as long as we did, and literally before there was young phenoms really out there, this was a young phenom that was standing on a stage with grown men, destroying them, and doing it in such a humble, fun, loving way. And you know, if you guys don't know Isaac's story, he's a very multi-talented guy that even at the height of his DJ career was like, oh, I think I'm going to go to culinary school now. And next thing, you know, I'm going to take my DJ career to another level, even though I'm actually not DJ anymore. And then I'm going to learn some holistic healing. So he's a complete world scholar, and he's moved back and forth to Australia a few times now. And if you guys don't know, he was one of our original teachers and helped write some of our original curriculum and is a cornerstone of the Beat Refinery. Isaac, thank you for being here.
Hey, the sex
DJ I-Dee.
Such a fine introduction. No, thank you guys. Happy 10 years. Once you guys
Crazy,
that, I was
right?
like, wow, it's been 10 years of Beat Refinery. Really, really awesome. Real quick, I just want to say something about Chris and Geo. Pillars of the music scene in the Washington area. For me personally, I wouldn't be a DJ if it wasn't for my older brother. My older brother and Chris had a really tight relationship going back to the DJ Hut days and all that. Chris and Geo have basically saw me grow up and saw me from day one to, you know, from the US championships to the DMC world title, all that. And very glad, happy, excited to be here. Unfortunately, under these circumstances. But yeah, ex-battle DJ, living here in Sydney, Australia at the moment. Run my own school here called Control Place. We've been open for the last 3 years or so. And yeah, just happy to bring some outside of the US perspective and also like a global perspective, you know, as we continue to throughout this panel and see what everyone has to share.
Yeah. For the rest of this interview, Isaac's gonna do it in an Australian accent. So
So,
Don't
but
get
you're
him started.
gonna make a right turn, then you're gonna chuck a Yui, then after you make your right. Anyways, that's
Well, let me now be so gracious and being able to introduce my partner and the guy that really none of this ever happens without, because he's the mad scientist, someone that I can always rely on when I'm completely lost in whatever it is technically, or when it comes to just sitting down and figuring things out. No one does it better than this gentleman, and he's an incredible DJ that's built an incredible career for himself. Ladies and gentlemen, DJ Geometrix.
Hey, thanks. What's up, world? Once again, I'm along with Chris, Stylus Chris. We're co-founders of the Beat Refinery DJ School at Bach to Rock, locations nationwide. About myself, I've been DJing for 25 plus years. I used to be a nightclub DJ. Now I work in the private events. Have my own private events company called Posh Life DJ Company. I pride myself in DJing 50 plus weddings a year, so that's pretty much about me. So real quick, guys. So everybody on the chat, everybody in our Zoom webinar right now, everybody, we're streaming worldwide via Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Basically, if you have any questions during our webinar, during our presentation, feel free to type it down on the chat. I'll collect all those questions, and then we'll ask, especially if you have any questions to particular panelists, I'll write those down and make sure to ask everybody closer to the end of the webinar. But we'll do those questions right after we are done with our featured special guest presentation for today. So I'm going to kick it back to Chris and formally introduce our special guest.
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough in the DC area to have a guy that's kind of started playing down here maybe like 10 plus years ago and was just kind of wrecking shop. And we kind of, I think I knew him because he had so many edits in my Serato before I even knew who he was as a person. But it was like, man, who is this dude that keeps making these dope remixes and edits? And I think at that point we came in contact, and he's become a good friend of the Beat Refinery and of myself personally. He is the kind of dude that has probably been in your town DJing a club, and he is one of the hardest working people I've ever met. Not even DJ, but definitely as a DJ. But in any job, you'll have a harder time finding somebody that is more dedicated to their craft. He's 25 years in the game. He's been playing in Pittsburgh, his hometown, since he was, I think, 16 years old when he got started in 15. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off that 1 year. He's been the Pittsburgh Steelers DJ for at least 4 years now, I want to say. And Pitt Panther basketball and football. We're so thankful to have him here to discuss a lot of really great topics of this current climate. Digital Dave, what's up, bro?
What up? What up?
Clap. Yeah, what up, bro?
So thank you, Chris. So my name is Digital Dave, like Chris said, and I've been DJing for 25 years, and he kind of told you a lot about me. And whenever this whole situation went down and everyone started getting the stay-in-place orders and bars were closing and weddings and corporate events were having to get canceled, personally, I had a lot that I wanted to do. I always feel like I have a lot on the back burner that are projects that I want to delve into and work on more. But I noticed on social media, especially a lot of DJs that were in a situation where they were kind of panicked, and they were like, well, what do I do? You know, there's the one side, which is making money or not making money in this case, but there's also the, you know, how can I be productive? I don't want to sit at home, 16 hours a day playing Call of Duty, so I put together a list, and I'm like, let me put together a list of some ideas that are things that I plan to do or have been doing that can be productive during this downtime. And I ended up making a list of 10 things. And about 2 weeks later, things were still shut down, and things are going to be shut down till the end of April now. So I decided to make a second list. So the second list had another 10 things on. So I had 20 total things that I came up with that DJs can do to be productive in their craft during this downtime, and to ideally come out of this downtime in a much more positive manner, and as a better DJ, as a better business, kind of ready to go as hard as possible once this is done. So I feel like we're all stuck inside for the time being. So you should be doing everything you can to elevate your game and elevate yourself while you're stuck inside, so that after we're let loose again, you're as on top of your game as you can be. So I want to go through some of them, and I posted these on my Instagram, which is at DJ Digital Dave 1. So you can check out the list on there. But I just wanted to go into a few of them in a little more detail too during this webinar. So the first thing that I had, and this is always something that's really big to me, is to make mixes and upload them to Mixcloud. That's kind of my, I think the best option we have at the moment for uploading mixes. Obviously, SoundCloud used to be the go-to until they started pulling mixes down. But I use Mixcloud, and I feel like a lot of club DJs are really on their Mixcloud game, but I feel like a lot of mobile and DJs kind of slip and don't make mixes. And I think it's very valuable, because for me, whenever I have potential clients that come to me for a wedding inquiry, corporate event inquiry, one of the first things I do, a lot of them are familiar with who I am already, but one of the first things I always do is I send them a link to my Mixcloud. And they always talk about how we've been driving around in the car kind of bumping your mixes, and if other DJs don't have a Mixcloud, the people you're competing against, they're going to be able to hear, your potential clients are going to be able to hear you and hear what you sound like. And that's the best way, in my opinion, to kind of give a potential client a taste of what you can do. So making mixes, uploading them to Mixcloud, I definitely think is a very important. That would be my number one thing to do during this downtime. Making edits in Ableton or whatever software you choose to use. I personally, for me, I use Ableton, but it could just be entering Ableton. If you've never done it, there's lots of great tutorials online, and I'm sure you guys have classes on that as well. But a lot of people are at square one on Ableton, and they may have never opened it, and they might be scared to. But once you open it up and once you spend some time on it, it gets easy really quickly, and you're able to pick up things really quickly. Or maybe you're great at making edits in Ableton, and you want to get to the level where you can produce in Ableton and make full-on original productions, and maybe you just want to elevate your game in there. But I definitely think spending time on your production game during this downtime is important as well. Next up, this is something we're probably always doing, but downloading new music. But not only downloading new music, but I think this is a good downtime opportunity to try to download new old music and go through, and if there's a genre or a decade or an era you feel weak in, go back to that era, go to that genre, go to your record pool, and just go in the rock genre, or go in the Latin genre, or whatever genre it is you want to strengthen your game in, and just start going through those songs, finding yourself some new songs to play in your set. I also like to do research a lot. I go back to old Billboard charts. I go to old, even just certain sites like Billboard and Uprocks have critics lists of like the 50 best Drake songs, or the 50 best Biggie songs, or the 50 best rap records of the 2000s or 90s. And I don't even just go through charts. I'll go through critics lists and just try to find those gems that I had forgotten about in the past, and try to grab some of those and just kind of become more well-rounded, so I'm not playing the same songs all the time in my sets. Next up, update your social media bios. I know we're always on social media. We're always posting on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. But I do think a lot of people get in the habit of actually not updating their actual bio. They may throw up posts all the time. They may throw up images, pictures, posts, whatever, but their actual bio sometimes might be 4 or 5 years old. And I think focusing on updating that bio, if you don't update it already, is something important to do. Next up, start a podcast. A lot of DJs I talk to always talk about how they'd love to have time to start a podcast. I wish I could start a podcast. Wish I had time to start a podcast. And now you have time to start a podcast. And, whether it be talking to other DJs, whether it be talking to potential clients in your industry, whether you're in the nightclub industry, whether you're in the private event sector, definitely this would be a great time to start a podcast. And this would actually be a great time where you could bank up episodes so that when things get busier again and everything opens back up, you can keep on a weekly schedule and you can kind of have a backlog of episodes ready to release in the case that, you don't have time to record one this week. So if that's something you're interested in doing, it's a great self-promotional tool. Definitely consider starting a podcast. Update your website. I know someone mentioned that when we were going through, when we were talking earlier in the chat. I can't remember if it was once we were on air or before we were on air, but we were talking about updating your website. A lot of DJs, have a great website made and then it never gets updated and they have old information on it. And I think it's definitely important to make sure that all your current accomplishments are available for potential clients to see on that website, whether those clients are promoters, nightclub owners, managers, potential, corporate clients, brides and grooms. You want to make sure that website is as up to date as possible. Because if you accomplish some dope shit in the past year or two, and that's never made it on the website, you're doing yourself a disservice by not having that information on there. Network definitely is a huge thing right now. And I've been telling people to reach out to people that you always mean to reach out to and you never have the time. I feel like we all have this list of, I wish I could talk to that person more. I wish I had more time and I could reach out, whether it's a planner, whether it's a promoter, whether it's another DJ in another city. I feel like we all have people we wish we had more time to talk to, and feel free, please reach out to those people. In fact, I've had 2 different planners that I reached out to during this COVID-19 downtime that I was just reaching out to. They're planners I've worked several weddings with. And I said, hey, I just want to see how you're doing. And I actually, 2 of the planners, I reached out to many more than 2, but 2 of the planners I reached out to, we ended up actually talking back and forth. And I've actually ended up booking gigs, 2 weddings, one from each of those planners. So definitely still network. Just because we're not working does not mean this is not a time where we can still be networking. In fact, there's more time to be networking right now. Updating your marketing materials, that kind of goes along with updating your website. But if you have any kind of PDFs, brochures, EPKs, anything like that, that you want, they again, go through them. A lot of times, you have a dope designer make up a great EPK or a great brochure, and then 3 years later, you've accomplished a lot more since that was made, and you never updated your EPK or you never updated your brochure. So I think that is something that's, really important to focus on. Practice scratching. I mean, that's something I think everyone tries to spend some time doing, but if you don't, spend some time doing it. And if you don't scratch, this is an opportune time to work on it and learn. There are tons of, tutorials online that you can use, and again, obviously, I know a lot of the people watching this are, Beat Refinery students. So, I'm sure you've had classes on that, and it's definitely an opportune time to practice and, touch up on that. Create a bio on a site that you're not currently on. Some people aren't on something like, say, LinkedIn. If you're not on something like a LinkedIn, maybe you're just on Facebook and Instagram. It's worth creating a new social media presence on a site that you're not on. It's definitely a worthwhile investment of time. So that's my first 10. Going into the second 10 here, organize your crates. That one is a huge one that everyone always tells me, I wish I had more time to organize my crates. My crates are a mess. I wish I had more time to organize my crates. You have time to organize your crate now. And I swear If any DJ tells me in September that their crates are a mess and they wish they had more time to organize their crates, I'm going to hit them, because now is your time. Organize your crates. Back up your computer. I mean, this is something we always talk about. We talk about it all the time, and everybody still probably doesn't do it frequently enough. And now is definitely an opportune time to get your computer backed up and make sure that you have all your information on a backup hard drive. I actually have a clone computer, and I have 2 separate backup hard drives because I'm just paranoid about losing shit. Live stream is something that a lot of DJs are doing right now. And there can be value to it. I suggest not overdoing it. I don't think, I know some guys are going on, every day, and I don't think that's the answer. And I don't think in the long term, you're going to gain everything from going on 7 days a week and live streaming. I think, find a certain time every week, 1 or 2 times, stick to those times. It's great if you can stick to a genre that you're known for. Like I know Chris last night started, playing kind of his regular Wednesday ESL set as a live stream. And I think he plans to continue doing that. So if you can kind of have a night, maybe you have a club night you play every week and it's kind of a popular club night, maybe stick to that as kind of your night and your format. I don't think you can definitely over live stream. I think you should kind of, stick to 1 or 2 times a week and try to make it consistent. Next thing, learn how to MIDI map. And if you know how to MIDI map, MIDI map your mixer, MIDI map your controller. There's lots of great things you can do that can make your life easier with MIDI mapping. MIDI mapping with Serato is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And you can kind of come up with some creative ways to mix better, mix faster, do more tricks, and just work better on the fly if you have some buttons MIDI mapped to do some cool things that you like to do in your sets. Number 5 on this second list, which would be number 15 overall, write. I wrote this all out. Actually, the first 10 as an article for DJ Times, but there are a lot of great blogs out there. There are a lot of DJ blogs, things like that. Here we got my list of the second 10 here up on the screen. But there are a lot of DJ blogs up there, out there. You can write to submit something to a blog, submit something to a magazine. And Wedding Wire have DJs that contribute to some articles for brides and grooms to look at. So it's another great exposure tool. So if it's your thing, definitely consider writing. Number 6 on this list of the second 10, clean up your crates. You do not need 6 intro clean versions of Bodak Yellow. Can't tell you how many DJs I constantly see, and I'll be on their computer and they'll be like, hey, play a song while I go to the bathroom or something like that. And I'll type in a song and they have like 40 versions of it and they have 6 of the same version of that song. So go through, clean up your crates. I feel like you end up playing less music when you have more, because I feel like there's so much clutter when you're trying to scroll through, whether it's a crate, whether you're going through your all. Definitely spend some time to tidy up your hard drives. Number 7 on this second list, communicate with your clients. Just because we're not DJing right now does not mean if you have private, especially if you have private event clients, corporate clients, brides and grooms, they're probably freaking out even more than us because they have these events they have planned, they have weddings they have planned, and they're probably very, very scared, right now about how their event's going to happen, if their event's going to happen, when their event's going to happen. They put so much money, a bride and groom have put so much money into a wedding, and I think that there can definitely be some apprehension there. So make sure to reach out to them, make sure that you're doing all that you can to keep them comfortable. And, if you have nightlife clients, just keep in touch with them, just make sure you don't lose touch so that you're still in a good relationship when things come back to normal. Number 8, learn graphic design. It's something that I'm sure most of you are aware of, can be extremely useful in this industry. I made both of those graphics for these top 10 lists, myself in Photoshop. I do use graphic designers for some high level things like my logos and EPKs and website and stuff like that. But, you know, for like little weekly, monthly things, my monthly schedule, things like that, you know, I do all the graphic design work myself. And I think it's something where you can put out a much more polished professional presentation of yourself on social media without incurring the expenses of having to pay a graphic designer every time you want to put out a schedule, you know, 12 months a year or something like that. So definitely investing some time in learning graphic design. Number 9, educate yourself. You know, if you're here, you're already doing that, you know, but you know, read through DJ blogs, go to webinars that are being presented. Use this time to learn. Use this time to learn how to be a better DJ. Number 10, file for unemployment compensation. For those of you that don't know, the CARES Act that was passed by the federal government has made it temporarily possible for 1099 employees, such as DJs, to file for unemployment compensation. So if you are a 1099 employee, usually you can't. Usually you have to be a payroll employee to file for unemployment compensation. However, in the short term, we're going to be able to do that. Now, a lot of states, for instance, Pennsylvania does not have their portal set up yet for this because it's something new. So you would go to your own states. It's a state by state process. So you would go to your own state's unemployment website, and then you would look for a special portal in there under the Federal CARES Act that allows 1099 employees to apply for unemployment. Most states, I believe, are not done yet. I don't think most states have this portal open yet. So you have to consistently monitor. I go every day on the Pennsylvania site and check, but you do have to consistently monitor that. Other than the 20 original things, I did have 2 additional things I did want to mention. One, and this is kind of a funny one, but I thought of it the other day, is to go through your Shazam and download all the songs you Shazammed and then forgot about. Because I think we all Shazam songs at different random times and places. You know, I've even gone in a store and heard a cool song and Shazammed it. And then you never go back and actually download all these songs. So go open up your Shazam, find some songs you Shazammed that you really liked a lot and then totally forgot about as soon as you got home. And the last thing, it's kind of fun. I did this the other day. I've been on my list for a long time, but is clean up and fix up your equipment. I had some speakers with some chip paint, you know, chip corners on them. I got, if you have like wooden speakers like the EVs or the Evox speakers, they make a paint coating called Duratex, and I use the Duratex, and it's basically the same coating that comes on the speakers. And I touched up my speakers. They look great. I know all of our equipment that we use out gets dusty, gets dirty, and I definitely think you can spend some time taking your equipment, cleaning it up, and making it look better, so that, you know, when we are back using it again, especially if you're using it at weddings and for high-end corporate clients, that you're presenting your equipment and your gear in the best light possible. So that, I think, is about all I have for now. Obviously, I know we might have some questions, but you know, that kind of does it for me for the moment here.
Dave, that was awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing.
Woo!
It was funny how that when this kind of first hit, I remember seeing your first 10 come out pretty quickly, to where it just speaks to the acumen of how your brain works. It's what makes, I think, DJs in general a very unique profession. Is most DJs you'll find are pretty much independent thinkers. They look at problems as solutions. I mean, the way I look at DJ set is it's a big giant obstacle course that you're trying to get through on a daily, nightly basis, and a lot of that kind of training, I think, will apply to your regular day life. And when it so happens like this, I mean, I think I personally remember feeling like I was gonna fall off a cliff when I saw what was coming, like back in February, that, you know, and I think probably everybody on this chat, it's a DJ as their predominant source of income, was probably like thinking, oh my gosh, my faucet is about to be completely shut off. and there was really no way to get around it. It was, and I think at first it probably hit all of us individually, like, oh man, you know, like your other, you know, your other friends that are like, maybe they're a lawyer, or maybe they work at a nice government job, and you're like, they're gonna just be sitting at home, kind of working. Some of them are working a lot more, I've heard, but a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, this is telework, and I'm sitting around and I'm staying somewhat productive, but I'm getting a check. They're not worried in the sense of a DJ or a bartender or a manager of any hospitality industry. There's so many people that have just had the rug completely cut from them. And you know, DJs in general are pretty much, we're hustlers. We are the type of community that don't usually sit around, and we look for the next thing. And I was really appreciative personally to see that you brought that so quickly, that you had already, your mind had already shifted away from dwelling on the problem, and like, hey, here's some really positive solutions. And even when I go through that, I'm like, man, oh, I gotta do that. Oh man, I haven't done that. Graphic design, oh gosh, it's like, it was almost bringing me more stress. I'm like, wait. This is way too many things. You're trying to have me learn like 9 foreign languages in the span of 12 weeks of being shut down.
Yeah, I think I'm looking back at the date. I think I actually put it out the day after, like, the quarantines kind of started on a Sunday, and I think I put it out that Monday. I think I worked on it all day. I kind of had the list, but I worked on the graphic design all day and then posted it that evening. So yeah, I did get it out pretty quick.
I was just gonna say, I'm assuming you did the artwork as well, right?
Yes.
That's great, and that's how. And again, guys, you see how quickly he was able to do that with that extra skill set. You know.
Well, Dave, since you have that skill of like graphic design, what would you recommend people who wants to get into it, like just the basics? I mean, what's
a good program?
Yeah, where do you?
I use Photoshop. I mean, they have all different levels. So I mean, there are more kind of entry level Photoshops, which for me with Photoshop, I mean, I think I have one of the higher level versions, but I don't do a ton of the in-depth things that you need the higher level training for, I guess, and the higher level features for. So I would look into getting an entry level version of Photoshop. And I guess when I first started making flyers or schedules, I would try to find someone else's that I liked, that I was impressed by, and I would try to kind of mimic it. And that was, I guess, my first way of like, how do I learn this? You know, I'm going to try to figure it out by trying to make it look like someone else's I liked. And then over time, you kind of get your own style. The other cool thing about knowing things like in Photoshop is whenever I get business cards or perfect example is like my EPK. Anytime I have one made every few years by a graphic designer, I always ask them for the PSD, which is the Photoshop file. And then if I have, you know, something I want to add to that press kit, if I want to update it, I can just go in and update the text myself and not have, you know, a lot of graphic designers, they might be willing to just make a couple updates for you free of charge, but you have to get a hold of them. And if they're not, you know, you're not paying for it, you're probably on the bottom of their list as far as priorities to get to. Whereas if you have that skill set in the Photoshop, you can ask them for the Photoshop file and make a quick edit. If you change your, you know, say a new social media comes out, you want to add that handle to your EPK, to your business card. So Photoshop's what I use. But I've even seen DJs, I don't use any, but I've even seen DJs make great artwork with some cool iPhone apps. I know there's some great iPhone apps out there that allow you even just on iPhone to make dope artwork.
I was gonna say I use Canva. I know somebody popped that in one of the chats, but one of the things I do is use Canva. It's free, and you know you can get pretty creative with their, you know, their free license. So that's like a good alternative.
That's a good site. I've actually used
like,
that before.
I know my boy, he does my he did my EPK and he does some of my graphics. And he taught me Adobe Photoshop, and like it just went in one ear and it stayed in there for about a week.
Layers,
and it went
rasterizing
right out, you know. So but yeah, like I definitely agree with like, you know, being able to make your own graphics. It definitely like, you know, opens up a whole new world for you. So
yeah, it's almost, feel like Photoshop's almost like even when you learn a production software like Ableton, like you have to do a project with it right away, and then that helps it stick in your mind. If you learn it but then don't use it for, you know, a month, then you're like, I don't remember what this was. I don't remember what that was, you know.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanna really quickly say, you know, give a shout out to Jeff Mercer. He's the one that on the chat, and then also E Boogie. He also said use the Adobe Premiere. That's what he uses for his flyers. And the reason I want to particularly shout out those two gentlemen is they are veterans of the DC nightlife. Jeff now does mostly sound for people, and still DJs and rocks, but you know, he was DJing when I was a young kid sneaking into clubs. He was already there. He was already a DJ that I was looking at to try to be like, man, how is this dude doing this for a living? So the point of saying that is we've got in this chat seasoned veterans, and we've also got people that might be new to the DJ world. Everybody here is welcome. That's the whole point of this culture, and especially the culture that Gio and I wanted to create at the Beat Refinery is a place where you can allow yourself to be in company of other older DJs that aren't going to look at you like you're just a young kid, you don't know anything. So I'm want to let people know if you're feeling like maybe a little intimidated in the webinar, but you've got questions, you should feel free to answer those or ask those questions. This isn't something where we're only talking, you know, some high level stuff. If it's just a small level question, no question is too small. That's really an important thing for us to be all taking care of each other this time and discussing. And everyone on this screen that's a seasoned veteran at some point was new to the game, and we've all been there. And it's something that I think makes DJing so special, is that even when you've been doing it for 30, 40 years, you can continually grow, you can get better. It's a never ending. I've heard golf described like that. I don't really play golf, but people say it's impossible to have a perfect game. And to me, it's almost like a DJ set is almost impossible, or having a DJ career be perfect is impossible. You just keep growing, you keep working at it, you keep building. And so part of this discussion, I just wanted to shout out that we have just such a great group on here. Also, Gio, can you let people know if they're watching on Facebook or on live stream and they actually want to join the webinar, how to still do that?
Yeah, I've been doing that. I've been letting everybody know. So once again, everybody that is on the stream right now, if you want to join us in Zoom for inside the webinar, make sure to look at your chat, because I'm going to type up the URL right now. But also, if you guys have any questions, I've been taking everybody's questions down on all of the chats. So if you have any questions, make sure to type in the chat window, and I'll forward it to you guys. But I got one good question here. Marky, what's his name? Marky Buck from the UK, straight out of the UK. He's asking what is basically an EPK. And what are my question is, what are some of the good formats out there right now?
Wait, what was the follow-up? What was the second part of the question?
What's actually the best format for an EPK nowadays?
So as far as what an EPK is, it's an acronym for an electronic press kit, and basically what it normally consists of is kind of a bio of accomplishments, and then there'll usually be more kind of highlighted list at the bottom of maybe, depending on what your part of the industry you're in. It might be clubs that you've worked at, you know, bigger name nightclubs that you've worked at. It could potentially be corporate clients if you work with high-end corporate clients. And so and then if you have any, you know, press, sometimes, you know, press is linked to there. But basically an EPK is really the nightclub world's version of promoting yourself. It's not something that's used as much in the you know, corporate and private event industry as a DJ. I would say it's almost a nightclub's version of a brochure about yourself. As far as formats go, I mean, I like to use a one-page PDF that I can shoot into an email to someone. And it usually mine has like a bio of myself, and then it lists kind of some of my corporate clients and then some of my big nightclub clients and places I played at. and radio stations. You know, I've done shows in like Sirius XM and Power 106 in LA and stuff like that. So I that's kind of my style. I've seen people that have gone, you know, 4 or 5 pages really in depth with them, like full PDF pages. I feel like a lot of times people aren't going to make it that far. I feel like having a condensed version with the biggest highlights is best. And then the other thing, I guess, that's kind of become a thing. One of the designer that does a lot of my work, his name is Mo Knows Best. He's out of Chicago, but he worked in South Florida for years. And he's doing these Instagram EPKs now. So they'll basically be about 4 or 5 Instagram slides, and you post them to your Instagram once, but then if you're trying to share your EPK later on in life, you just copy and paste that link to that specific Instagram post, and people can kind of bounce back there, as opposed to it being an attachment file that you would put in an email or in a text message.
That's good info. Thank you, Dave. All right, Gio, what you got? Some more questions from the guests?
Can I jump in on a question?
Yeah, definitely.
Before Gio gets into it.
Anybody that wants to jump in, all of our panelists, make sure to do so.
Yeah, definitely. So I saw a question in the chat from Rashad, and what Rashad said is a really good point that I think a lot of what we're talking about right now touches on. Rashad said, what are some good tactics to go about getting a bar/club residency once the quarantine starts to end, or even during the quarantine? And I think big picture, what we're all, I guess, trying to share our experiences with and talk about how you can kind of adjust to the current situation, the fact that all the venues that we would typically go to get booked and get paid are closed. Anything that we're talking about as far as design or marketing, like what Dave said about an EPK is absolutely right. Art threw it in the chat. An EPK is the same thing if you were working a normal like suit and tie kind of job. You'd have a resume that you had to show somebody what your qualifications are. And I think big picture, because I mean, myself and I know a lot of the other guys on here, guys and girl on here, are full-time DJs. If you think about it like any other business owner, you want to make sure that people are aware where to find you, what it is that you do. If you've got any special skills that you want to make sure get highlighted, so people would specifically call you. If you're the funk and soul guy and you want to get the funk and soul parties, then you want to make sure people know that and highlight that on your EPK. But I think a really good way of taking this time, especially just going down Dave's list of all the things to do, start with the thing that you're the least comfortable with and just take a little goal. If something like Photoshop, what we talked about, and graphic design is something that you're not comfortable with, take a little piece and make that goal to say, all right, I want to make myself a logo. Or even something simpler. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I'm going to learn how to do something in Canva today. Because what you're going to find, and this is actually really good for mental health too, if you give yourself a super, super small goal and you've got the same 24 hours in the day that everybody else has got, then you can give yourself a task that's going to take maybe a half an hour at first, and then eventually it turns into 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. But you're developing the skill to do the work once, and then it's going to feed you later on down the line. I've taken most of this perspective in everything that I do, and the first thing I do when I get out of bed is try to accomplish something that I'm uncomfortable with first, and then handle all the other things that I need to do, following up with clients, working on like my OBS setup, making sure all these cameras work, all this kind of craziness comes later. What you really need to do is just focus on the thing that you're least comfortable with while you can't leave the house, and it forces you to kind of lock in and get good at that. And just those little baby steps all along the way are going to lead you to a point where, all right, well, now I've got something to show for this time that I'm down. It's not about, hey, if you go talk to the promoter, you're going to get a magic residency. It's about all the little things that led up to that one point.
I do want to add one real quick other thing about that too, going back to talking about mixes and making mixes. I think this is almost a perfect time if you have a specific venue in mind and you know who a promoter there or a manager there, make a mix, make a specific mix that would apply to or appeal to that venue's music format, and send it to them. Hit them up via social media. Don't make the mix be the first thing you send to them. Try to kind of have some sort of back and forth relationship before you shoot a mix over. But send a mix out. Make a specific mix. to try to get yourself into the venue you want to get yourself into. Because the one good thing is now with promoters and managers being, you know, stuck at home all day, they actually have a little more time where they might be like, look, you know, I'm not doing anything. I'll give this DJ's mix a listen. I'll see if there may be someone worthwhile, because you know, it is downtime. And I've actually already kind of hit up a few different out of town places that I might end up playing after this quarantine's over, because there's a little more wiggle room for conversation, and then to check me out because they weren't on their normal busy daily grind that they're in when we're not in quarantine.
I just want to follow up too on both what Sean and Dave was saying. Definitely, this is the best time to be proactive with everything that we're doing. At the same time, we are in the music industry. It is a cutthroat business, and we are in uncharted waters at the same time. So we have to also be realistic as to, you know, how it's going to be on the other end of the, you know, of us coming out of this. You know, we're contracted to do our work. We're not necessarily involved in the financials of what these promoters are or the club owners. So we don't know, you know, where they currently stand. Some of them might be all right, some of them might not, you know? So I think this is a good time for us to kind of, just like how some DJs transition from being a DJ into a producer or vice versa, you know, this is a way for us to transition from a DJ into somewhat of a promoter or being more involved on the business end. Talk to the promoters, talk to the owners. Where are you guys at financially? Are you guys struggling? How much are you under? You know, all these things so that way you can develop a relationship where, you know, you're not just offering your services, but you're actually, you know, concerned that like you want to make this, you just don't want to take their money. Just like, hey, give me X amount of money to do a gig, you know, but, you know, is that going to be fruitful for you? Are you making a benefit? Are you making a profit? You know, so I think now more than ever, you know, it might be a little bit tougher, you know, but I think we're going to be smarter the way we go about it. And I think that's crucial. Here in Sydney in particular, I know plenty of promoters who are at a, you know, crazy loss, you know, and, you know, they kind of, you know, they're paying, you know, 25 or club owners 25 to 30 grand a week, you know, in rent, you know, and for it to just kind of just all of a sudden, you know, close and who knows if they'll reopen. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, globally and especially back home in the US, what cities, you know, who comes out, you know, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of outshine and be a little bit smarter about it. And at the same time, just to capitalize on what Dave was saying, really focus on our skills and just try to become a jack of all trades with everything that we're doing. So that way, when we do go to the promoter or go to the club owner, it's like, you know, we're going in there with clear insight as to, you know, the best way to go about it, because we are a walking business in a sense, you know, and I'm always learning every single day. There's always something new. So yeah, it should be interesting the way we come out of this.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, we are, I think, a line of demarcation for our entire culture is, you know, humanity 2020 is putting a dent in, and it's a line in the sand that is drawn, and the world is a new place from this. The same way, I'm sure, in 1918, people might have felt the same way. That life has changed. There's a lot of things that we've all, like, look at what we're doing right now, and this is becoming more comfortable for us. Why? Because we have no other option right now. And it's certainly a time where, you know, your anxiety levels on a whole are shooting through the roof, no matter really what your situation is. And then if you add the financial stress or the future stress, you know, it can feel overwhelming. It's just really important to really manage yourself first and manage your health and well-being first, in front of your career, in front of if you have a family. Like, I'm a family man. I have 2 small kids. I've had to allow myself to put some of those great ideas that Dave has on hold, because I'm homeschooling my children. I'm making sure my children are being nurtured and they're being cared for, most importantly, through all this. How is their mental health? I mean, kids don't you have to really peel the onion back on kids to know how they're feeling or how they're experiencing through trauma like this. They fight it off. So I mean, I'm sure there's some parents out here that are, you know, feeling the way I am. It's like I almost feel like there's less time in the day right now than there was before coronavirus hit. I feel like I can't get everything done that I want to get done, partly because of my own drive to succeed, and I'm my biggest critic, but also because my children need me more than ever right now, and they need to know that they're cared for, and you need to be able to spend quality time with them to make sure that they're okay. My son is 6, my daughter's 12. It's a big difference in what each of them are going through in this. So, you know, it can get a little overwhelming when you see like DJs live streaming or doing all this stuff. You see guys like making great moves, and you know, there is a little bit of the truth in that, where, you know, there'll be just like Isaac was saying, clubs and venues that never open again. There will probably be DJs that don't come back out of it.
Yeah.
That end up saying this isn't my career anymore, and it could partly be because they needed like an athlete like that doesn't know when to retire, so to speak, like Brett Favre or somebody like this. This has stopped the clock, and because of that, some people will not make it back through, and other people will shine through. Other people will find themselves using this time to be unique. And I think, you know, a lot of the things that we're hearing from our panelists are really touching on the positives, whether it's something that you can learn as a personal skill and being well-rounded, like Isaac said, or like Sean said, you know, being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable as a human being is one of your highest qualities if you can learn to master that instead of being afraid from that. And that also translates to a DJ gig. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to take a risk, to play a song, or to do a trick live that you've never even thought of doing before. And even if you mess up, it's okay, because that's what's allowing your creative space to grow, and you will feel so much better from that. Instead of saying, man, I wish I would have tried to play that song. I thought about playing that song, but I was scared it would move the dance floor or part it like Moses did the Red Sea. You know, we're not worried about that. Go ahead.
And one quick thing on that as well. You know, when AM died, for example, you know, we saw the rise of, you know, EDM and, you know, bass movement and all that. So us as open format DJs, you know, he was the guy kind of leading the way for us, you know, and then, you know, things kind of shifted. So personally, I feel, as, you know, as far as us coming out of it, I think the open format DJ is going to be more important than ever since, you know, the early AM days, because it's going to show, you know, who's basically hungry and willing and ready to kind of maximize every single skill, every single genre, any sort of night, any sort of club, you know. And that's how, you know, with the Beat Refinery in particular, or any, or, you know, DJ school, this is why we emphasize and stress that, you know, you have to be a student of the game 24/7, no matter what, you know, because in times like this, you know, it really shows, you know, who's got their ears open, you know, and who doesn't, you know. And that's the one thing that I'm personally looking forward to coming out of this, knowing that, you know, it's not just going to be the superficial, you know, you know, it could be, you know, who knows, I'm just, you know, but the superficial girl or, you know, guy that's just, you know, they just learn DJing in a couple months. They never learn how to, you know, build a gut. You know, they don't, you know, have an, you know, ear for it, you know. You know, those ones, you know, might not survive it, you know, and this is where, you know, we have to come in as a group, as a whole, and really support each other and just be like, if I'm not doing this gig, I'm going to get someone else who's super solid to do it. And we just kind of cultivate it and keep it within that particular structure. So that way going forward, we can, you know, rebuild that pillar in a sense.
I want to touch on one quick thing, you know,
real quick, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, throughout my entire career of being a DJ, I've always looked at certain clients as trade clients, where there's no money that's ever exchanged. You don't always have to make money at a DJ gig to get value from it. And I'm not saying doing it for free. I'm saying if someone is providing a service that you need, then you can provide that service and back to them. And this is a perfect time while we're all shut down to find other people that you have. Like, you have a skill, you might have a skill that they want to learn, and they might have a skill that you want to learn, and each one teach one. Take this time and responsibility for each other to say, like, hey, I'm willing to show you how to do these tricks if you show me how to do those tricks. And we can certainly build off that communal space. And it doesn't always have to be about money, you know, and we can really learn from not having money right now, and how in some ways how if you're constantly just the focus is on the money side, it's gonna overwhelm you a little bit more. And we've been seeing DJs talk about on the chat. I've been seeing a little bit like, how did you guys get your start? I think for most of us that started on vinyl, it's irrelevant how we started now, because it does not even correlate to the world of what younger DJs are going through now to try to break into the club scene or get into a gig. I mean, any of us that were all vinyl DJs, you could, the way we got in was by spending every dollar you had on every record and going to your gigs that only paid you $50 and you spent $100 on them. Younger people can't even fathom that. But what we can't fathom as older DJs is how hard it is to actually get in the door, because you're competing against 200 other guys that say I'm a DJ now, and there's only 30 venues and there's 200 applicants, you know. So the game has changed, and even more importantly, it's going to change drastically, like Isaac and Dave are saying, from this new benchmark that we're at.
So I want to throw this question out to everybody on the panel right now. What is basically, we'll go down the line. What is basically your weakness right now, and what are you doing to improve it, like during this time? So I want to ask Digital Dave that first.
My weakness and what I'm doing to improve it. I would say my weakness is cutting with my left hand, and I've been trying to work on that. I would say that's a big weakness of mine. I've spent a lot of time. I wish I had more time. You know, Chris was talking about, it feels like things are almost busier now. I wish I had more time to practice and do things for myself. I've been on a lot of different, you know, webinars and writing some articles and trying to help other DJs out. Two things I did really, really quick. Sorry, I want to bounce back in from that last conversation. One is from the community standpoint, also too, especially for private event DJs, work with other DJs you know and you trust. I've had a couple wedding clients come to me and they said, you know, look, our DJ told us he's not available on the date we changed to, and was kind of like tough shit. So there's definitely gains to be had from both sides if you keep in touch with other DJs. If you can't do a wedding and someone else is, you know, a bride and groom reschedule, and you already have a different wedding that date, you know, find a DJ you trust, and then you're helping out someone that's a good person and a good DJ, and then you're helping out that couple because you're not putting them into ground zero. Again, looking from a DJ for a DJ from scratch. So from a community standpoint, I did want to address that real quick. And the other thing I wanted to address real quickly was based on what Chris was talking about where we got our starts. And I think a lot of people mentioned maybe a little bit where they got their start. But the biggest thing I think for me that still applies is to have patience. And I mean, I started at 15. You know, I wasn't till I was 20 that I played in a nightclub. It wasn't until I was like 23, 24 that I played on a radio station. So, I mean, it was close to, 5 years before I played in a club, close to 10 years before I played on radio. But I kept grinding because I loved what I did. And that's the one thing that really I don't think has changed from 20 years ago or 25 years ago till now, is that you will get results if you have patience. And a lot of DJs want to be playing at the biggest club in the city in 6 months, and that's not always going to happen. So I always encourage younger DJs to have patience when they're going through this. So sorry, Gio. I just wanted to pop those other two things in while they were on my mind.
I was going to agree 100% because I feel like I'm kind of falling into that category. I guess out of everybody that's on the panel, I'm like the young buck. And I'm happy to be that, you know what I'm saying? But it's everything that you all have been saying is very much true when it comes to trying to get those gigs. You know what I mean? Like, I was fortunate enough to do Heist with you guys. And I didn't know that it was like a super big deal, but it
killed it, bro.
To build those relationships. And it goes back to some things that, Chris said, and, yourself, Dave, is like, maintaining those relationships, like, just like checking to see if people are all good. I mean, like, it goes a long way, farther than just being like, hey, like, here I am. every venue you go to, or every venue that I play at least, I know all of you guys probably feel like, you're part of a family. Like, you walk in, everyone knows who you are. They have a good time the same, night that you're having a good time playing. So I think that's super important to consider.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in, like Chris was talking about earlier, how a lot of us are, full-time working DJs, and we're artists and artists across the board. It's not all fun and games. This is like an extra burden, like deliberately going into this world of business and hustle. It's hard enough to, be a businessman, but to like take your art and make a business out of that, you're really putting a lot of stuff on the line. And for a lot of us, it's like it's a path less traveled. So you always got to be creative, making ends meet. It's like feast or famine in this business, like more than others, and everybody kind of finds their own way. And right now is seriously like a real life test of that concept. I was I've been teaching at Beat Refinery for 5 years, and it was always kind of a balancing act between teaching and DJing. And recently I really went for just going full time. I've had like a pretty major upswing with a couple DMC championships. It helps just kind of boost your visibility to the world, and just getting stamped by like bigger promoters, bigger production companies, and I just kind of felt this
Getting free stuff.
upward. I mean, yeah, free stuff is great. But even just, it's funny because a lot of us, like we're just the same dude, the same dudette we've always been. But as you collect more accolades, people start to take you more seriously. Like some words on a page change, a title changes, and everyone's like all of a sudden trying to put you on. And anyway, like I just before this pandemic hit, I decided to take that risk that my parents have always been advising me not to do, and just go full force with it. I was like, this is it. I got to do this. Like the tours are picking up and all that. And right as I dove face first into that, my March was completely booked out all over the country, and every single gig canceled, one after another. I made $75 last month. Like, so it was a rude awakening. And I can't say I haven't faced that before, but this is a really just interesting time. It's a strange time in our human history. Like, we, all of us artists in here, it's just proof that it really pays to have other revenue streams, and it doesn't necessarily have to be mixing records. I mean, I love the fact that Dave is really trying to bang it into everybody's heads that's on this live stream right now, pick up other skills, because they all feed into this main, overall goal of being a DJ, being just having like multiple useful skills, graphic design, promoting, like I-Dee was talking about. We all got to get a little more invested into the promotional side of things. I mean, I'm really curious to see like how the world bounces back from this. Maybe it never will go back to whatever normal was. Like we have been slowly approaching the singularity where everything is virtual, and we're in like a Ready Player One kind of
I'm
situation.
prepping myself for a new normal.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be new normal, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think what anybody can take from this scenario of what we've gone through is everything is speeding up. Like all this technology we're using now, it was all here, but we were, some people were using it more than others. But as a society, we've been forced. Almost everybody is using more of a digital communication tool now, and we're gonna certainly, I think, go back to, the human spirit is a unique one. And if any, I'm sure everybody on this panel, everybody that's on this webinar has gone through a tragedy in their life of some sort, and in the midst of that tragedy, you feel like you're never gonna get over it. But time is a magical thing, and time does a lot to change and move, and normalcy will set back in. Now there might be a new normal in certain regards, but you know, there will still be clubs to go back to, or there'll still be weddings to play, or there'll still be sporting events to play, or all the different amazing avenues that the DJ culture has provided work for us in the world that we live in now, where maybe the only way to make money as a DJ 20 years ago was like 2 or 3 different outlets, and now there's just thousands of outlets, and so we constantly have to continue to grow. And I think, as we've been saying, this line of demarcation has really made us all look back and say, where can I be more efficient? I think I-Dee really touching on that is really the importance of that, and it's kind of sums up in Dave's points, is like that is your own efficiency, relying on yourself for as much as you can, is so important. I actually want to kick it over to Kim for a second, because, you know, if you guys don't know, Kim is also this entrepreneurial spirit. She's a teacher, but she's also built her DJ business. And, you know, one of the things that we were talking about before we got on is just like, how is everybody, you know, dealing with their current situation and their contracts. And Kim had made some, you know, just some good points to share with you guys about creating contracts.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So also, you know, Digital Dave talked a lot about things that you can do right now while we have all this downtime. And if you've never written a contract for yourself before, now is a good time to start figuring out how to write your own contracts and sort of some of the things you would want to put in them. And in my contracts, I have a 50% upfront non-refundable deposit for all of the private events that I book on my own. And it saved me a little bit in this crisis. You know, definitely, like when everything got shut down or postponed or whatever, I still had some money to rely on because I asked for, you know, a 50% deposit to lock in the date up front. So you don't have to be as aggressive as I am. It doesn't have to be 50%. And sometimes, you know, I work with my clients, and if they don't have that kind of money up front, you know, we negotiate a lower percentage, but I always say it's non-refundable no matter what. And then, and it has kind of saved me a little bit, just a little bit, you know, helped me carry through like a month or whatever. But there's a lot of free templates online that you can use if you've never written a contract before. There's tons of resources. And like I said, we all have a lot of extra time now. So now's a good time to do that. And also another thing that doesn't really have to do with contracts, but just talking about, you know, again, kind of touching off what a lot of guys have already said. Now is a perfect time to organize your crates and let go of a lot of the extra songs in there that you know you're never going to use. Like if you have 50 edits of one song, you know you only play like 1 or 2 and you don't really need the other one.
It's facts.
Yeah, so now is the time to clean your computer up. I feel like that idea, like trimming the fat, letting go, applies to everything. It's like now is a great time to let go of toxic people in your life. And it's even easier now with social distancing. You know what I mean? Like cut out all the crap that you don't need in your life so that you can be focused and that you can, like, you know, get through this time the best way that you can with the people that you actually care about, and, you know, come out of it, like Chris was saying too, like super efficient, highly efficient, you know?
Well, going back to the music organization, like now's the time to educate yourself and start listening to a lot of live streams, because pretty much almost every DJs out there are live streaming. So it's a good chance for you guys to listen and figure out, oh, I forgot about that song. Maybe, you know, put that in a crate of like must play later on after this pandemic is done, or even through your, you know, your live stream. Start Shazamming, like Dave was saying. Go through your Shazam playlist on Spotify or on Shazam and start looking at the songs for you Shazammed and totally forgot about it. Start organizing your music that way.
A lot of songs are going to have some new meanings after this.
Yeah.
Like Mask Off is going to be totally different.
So for a lot of you guys like tuning in and hearing all these folks talk, I think I just wanted to touch upon the simple idea, like is like DJing for these folks, at least here, if I could try to speak for everybody, it's more like a lifestyle for us. It's not something like we're like, oh, I have to try to do my DJing stuff. I got to fit it in this week. No, it's every day. We wake up and it's part of, you know, the lifestyle. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, this is stuff straight from the minds of people who, you know, who are in the thick of this stuff, you know. And, you know, I guess to coattail off of Kim and everybody else, like I feel fortunate enough for like maybe a couple weeks prior to like everything really going down, I was already in this mind state to refresh my computer. My computer was really bloated. The 2015 MacBook Pro, I had less than 10 gigabytes worth of internal storage, and it was just I just started DJing videos at Chicken and Whiskey, and like I had to get a hard drive, and like there were just so many dongles, and I wanted to get rid of that, so I was able to kind of just this isn't the point, but for under $300, I did so much research. I was able to update my internal solid state memory to 2 terabytes, and it freed up a lot of stuff, and now my machine moves great. And I feel fortunate that I did it right in time, because as soon as all this online stuff hit, and I'm like, all right, well, now let me see if I can run my Zoom with Serato, with Ableton in the background and all this stuff. Like, now my machine's equipped for that. And I feel fortunate enough to have kind of went through that just before all this. But yeah, just wanted to touch upon like the life.
On that note, you're talking about your computer being bloated, and you kind of went through and trimmed the hedges and all that. Like, that's something that we all undoubtedly deal with, with our computers just being chock full of music and videos and constantly posting stuff. So my computer has been like gasping for air at like 95% hard drive occupancy at certain
we
times.
realized that at the video shoot.
Totally not. Yeah.
You used my computer. We just put the file on my computer and did it.
And part of the reason that even was a thing was because, we're all like, moving so fast, just doing all the work involved with this DJ hustle. I mean, I genuinely did not have the time to like really address it for like an egregious amount of time. And now like I look at this as just, this is a reset. However anybody wants to interpret it, I'm so thankful to have this time. One of these, my to-do list is like this long, and one of the things was clean out the damn computer. And I was talking to my brother, who's a video editor, big tech guy, and he's like, you realize, especially if you guys are on a Mac.
How about Andrew?
Yeah, he's in the next room, listening to me yap. But he was like, if you go to your Finder window on your Mac, and you hit Command J, opens up like just options for your Finder, and there's a little box that says show library folder, which is unchecked by default. And when you do check that, right, so you have your home folder in your Finder window, and so all of a sudden you see library in your Finder window. And if you go into that, it's like a whole bunch of like under the hood computer stuff, but it's like core follow-up and like fonts and all this like random stuff, but caches and what was the other one? Where you at? Caches, and I think it's application support. You'd be surprised. I mean, we're all sitting here just killing time every day. If you go through each and every one of these things and control click or 2-finger click and just get info, so you could see how big all of these files are. I mean, some of them are like kilobytes or tiny little bits of megabytes, and then you might hit 1 or 2 or 3 that are like 10 gigs.
Yeah.
Like I had one that was 100 gigs, and I was like, damn. Like I was trying to figure out why. Like everything on my entire computer is in my Dropbox folder. I just learned from having a couple laptops stolen over the past several years. I learned to just take everything on my entire computer. There's virtually nothing on my computer that's not in the Dropbox, so at least it's like backed up. My Dropbox is 300 gigs. My hard drive on the computer is 500 gigs, but when it was almost completely full, and I was like, why the hell is there 200 gigs unaccounted for? And so I started going through the caches and the system application support things, and I found like over 100 gigs of stuff that was just chilling, and so I purged it. And I don't know, everybody kind of has different computer habits.
So
I would recommend
real quick, Throwdown, there's a question on, or really a statement on Facebook, but somebody just said, Throwdown, there are programs out there that do cleaning automatically, like Clean My Mac.
Yeah, I was gonna just say Clean My Mac. Everything that he's talking about is correct. However, for the user who is unsure, which is a lot of people, like you don't want to mess with that stuff. That's why it's hidden. I am using a program called Clean My Mac. it's great. I mean, the first time I used it, it cleared up 30 gigabytes worth of stuff, and now I run it like maybe once a week, and I clear up internet caches and stuff like that. It gives me about 3 or 4 gigabytes back every time. And it tells you some other things like your battery life, your CPU usage, your network speed, and a few other good things. But
So it sounds like a personal preference thing because I don't want my production software chopping samples for me. I don't want my car driving for me, and I don't want my computer like just throwing stuff out for me. I guess if you really want to go in there, at the very least, to understand what is happening.
sure.
under
Well,
the hood
I've
under
had
your
I've
computer,
had
so.
great success so far. So
Well, I think one of the things that's unique as all of us as DJs is we all have different lanes we're going in. We all have different approaches, and there's not a right or wrong way. It's figuring out the right way to do it for you. And I think the things that I've been really impressed with or inspired by are not necessarily the things that I want to do particularly, but for instance, I know he's on in the panel, and the DJ Flips is here with us today, and if you guys have been seeing his live stream,
What up, Flips?
his live stream has been really, really fun to watch. He's got, he's built a really cool, unique visual to it, and he's utilizing it in a way that it kind of fits the lane that he goes in every day before this and kind of coming out of this. I think Throwdown is the same kind of thing. When we were talking before, he was like, I think all this rush to get stuff done for the clubs is cool, but what I want to do is I want to sit back and mastermind a whole new show and a whole new program. And it's so, when Ross plays, when he goes and plays a set, he doesn't care what the audience wants to hear. He wants the audience to care what he wants to play. And that's a different scenario than most of us that go into, even if it's a wedding or a club, even if we have the freedom to kind of be ourselves, you're still worried about losing the club, or losing the dance floor at a private event. So you're gonna cater and do what you got to do. But someone like Ross, he's playing sets where he's trying to truly just be an artist and be creative. So he's using this time to really further what he's gonna do for his art and for the presentation that he wants to come out. So if you're on the chat or you're watching us somewhere and you're saying, well, looks like Digital Dave's got that lane all locked up, or it looks like Art's got that lane all locked up, or you can still be inspired by people that aren't necessarily doing what you want to do, and kind of figure out the ways to apply some of those principles to your own.
You touch up on that as well. For all the people in the chat, the attendees that are students up and coming and all that, understand that the creative arts in general are being affected, not just DJing, And so as a result of that, we're going to see a lot of bands not getting hired, because it's going to be probably too expensive. So that's where we come in. Your creativity is going to be shown in how you express your music. Doesn't, yeah, we want to brush up on scratching. Yeah, we want to brush up on all these things. It's going to be great. But ultimately, you DJing, just period, is an expression of yourself. So, although simple, something to really just focus on, and just don't. I know there's a lot of information coming in through this panel, but just to kind of digest it a little bit more, we do need to focus on the meat and potatoes, just the basics, and that's what DJing is, And so keep that in mind, when you go to, once everything reopens, if it's a coffee shop or bar or something, you're providing a service, you're getting the training, you have your gut, all this. Anyways,
that's probably one of the biggest questions right now. How do I live stream? How are you guys live streaming?
I can jump into that one unless somebody else wants to throw their 2 cents in. I've been really hitting the ground hard with that stuff.
Speak about it.
I've been doing Twitch and Instagram, and we've made a breakthrough in Instagram. Shout out my boy DJ Detroit. He's not in there, but he basically kind of helped me hack things so that you can use your, so I have a webcam. You can use a webcam to stream to Instagram. So yeah, and you can play direct audio. I'm going through my EP000. I'm using that sound card, in order to get direct audio
Boom.
to a camera. Huh?
PTO1.
PTO
I
one.
didn't even think
People
about
don't know that.
The PTO1.
That's crazy.
I was so it's
Right,
funny
you're right.
because I have there's
That's
an
what I'm
event
telling you, bro. You just find a second sound card.
the-
Problem
I'll-
solved.
I have an event that I'm supposed to be doing tomorrow, and I was kind of like panicking, like, yo, like, where am I gonna get an iRig? Where am I gonna get a roll and go mixer? Like, I already like put it up in my mind that I'm gonna have to spend this money, like $150 at least, to get this to me on time. And I just thought, I was like, there's something I can do here.
There is. Like, I mean, I had to pretty much rush. I'm already using 2 of my sound cards for this whole live stream, but I was trying to figure out how to stream audio straight into like Instagram land. Like, I'm thinking, oh, I got a 57, a Ring 57. I can probably use just hanging around.
Real quick, like just to coattail off of this too, guys. The idea here is we were talking about not having gigs, especially mobile DJs. We're not, club, mobile, anything outside of, I guess whatever. You're basically not using your gear. So in terms of like the gear that's sitting around in your garage or your car or whatever, that stuff is totally usable now. So in my mind, like to even get all my live stream stuff set up, I started going through my electronic junk box. I don't know if you guys have one of those. I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm a hoarder. I'm a collector, okay? I mean, it's just part of the culture. We collect records, sneakers, hats. I used to collect rocks, okay, before I got into any of this.
Art got a label maker in his entire
and
world.
then baseball cards, and then comic books, and then records. So, moving into now, a lot of the stuff that might be used for your mobile stuff that
Art.
only used for mobile.
Hey,
Set
as
it
one,
up.
is this useful right here?
Yo.
Yeah, you can play background beat. Thanks for waiting, guys.
We got one quick question that came in on the live on the chat about how can I DJ stream without getting taken down by copyrights. That is, from what I understand, Chris, that is it's just the wild wild west. Sometimes you're gonna get
Twitch.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was gonna say from everything I've experienced and what everyone's told me is that Twitch is the one place that doesn't kick you off for playing commercial music. Facebook and Instagram, it's a crapshoot. I've heard stories where people play 3 hours of commercial music and don't get kicked off, and I've heard stories where people are on for 5 minutes and they've been kicked off twice. So a lot of people might not have a Twitch account. I believe the initial purpose of Twitch was streaming for video game streamers. So Twitch basically, you obviously wouldn't have followers on there, but you can create a Twitch account and then promote that account on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your Twitter. So I would suggest going to Twitch if you want to guarantee you're not kicked off. The other thing I wanted to address real quick is that I do have an external sound card. I think a lot of people do, but a more cost efficient thing that you can also do during this time to run right into your phone, run right into your computer, is getting either whatever option you want on your mixer out. I have a dual RCA to a TRRS cable, which is basically an 1/8 inch cable, but it's an 1/8 inch cable with 3 rings around it, as opposed to an 1/8 inch cable with 2 rings around it.
TRSS, I think it's called.
Yeah, double R's.
Yeah, it's double R's. It's TRRS.
RRS. There you go.
Yeah, and you can run that either right into your laptop or right into your phone. And that is a much cheaper, if you don't have, $80 to buy an iRig, or I think stuff like that too now is on back order because it became so popular. If you don't have the money to do that right now, you can order a less than $10 cable. It's harder to find in stores. You probably would still have to order it, but you can get a TRRS cable that goes from usually probably RCA is going to be your best option, and run right into your phone or right into your computer.
But getting back to things, the strategy that we figured out was using OBS and a program called Yellow Duck. Once you have Yellow Duck, you'll end up just signing in with your Instagram credentials. And what will happen is it'll give you like your stream key and things of that nature. When you go to OBS to set up your streaming, setup, you're going to select custom and input that information. And like, whatever setup that you have will allow you to do direct audio straight to Instagram. The only drawback is you won't be able to like interact with your followers in the way that you would like. So, you being able to text back, you just won't be able to see it from your phone screen. You'll probably have like another account, or, just like respond verbally or via microphone or something like that in order to kind of offset that. But I think that's a dope way to, get direct audio if you are not able to, get these chords in time. Or, if you have some, some dongles or some equipment laying around that you could possibly, set up to possibly get to another, video camera or phone or something like that.
That's Yellow Duck, guys, not to be confused
Yellow
with
Duck.
Brown
There's
Duck.
like mad. There's a bunch of different services that are doing this stuff.
Yeah, what
Yellow
you got,
Duck's the
Sean?
big one.
Tell us
And
what you got going on, Sean.
yeah, so thank you. Like that's like kind of segue perfectly, Dave and Zach, into what I wanted to talk about. So I just broke out my phone here, if you guys can see here on the Zoom chat. So I just went live on my IG. I want to kind of show a little bit of an example. So if anybody that's watching this on the Zoom, check my IG later on. Plug. DJ Sean J on all the things. But I'm gonna show you something. There's levels to this whole streaming situation. One of them, the most obvious that we're working with right now, is we've got our phones, right? So I'm going live right now on Instagram using my phone, and the way that I'm getting direct audio, it's not the audio that's like in my apartment right now.
Yeah, how you do
I've
that?
got a little mixer over here by Yamaha, and there's a whole bunch of these that people are talking about right now. It's called the Yamaha AG03, and there's also a larger one that I have, and it's over on this side called the Yamaha AG06. I'm gonna zoom in for the IG real quick. So here's the idea that you have a job as a DJ. Our primary job is to make people feel stuff with sound. And right now we can't go and do that at a place. So I've been spending the last like 3 or 4 weeks really like taking the streaming thing seriously. But I first dove into this, and Dave, thank you for leading into the Twitch thing. With Twitch some years ago, back in like 2013, I had a gig in Georgetown. It was a snowstorm. Nobody could get out to the bars, but the people that live within walking distance are like all the regulars. So they were like, hey, can you like live stream in somehow? So 2013 until now, I've been kind of toying around with all this streaming stuff. And the big hurdle that everybody's kind of realizing now is the copyright stuff. So we've got YouTube, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram where everybody like hangs out, but none of this stuff is new. Twitch was created for video game streaming, but now for the last like 4 years or so, there's been YouTubers who make their entire living off of this. And when it comes to getting your audio as a DJ in, it's more than just having a microphone. You have to have an interface that's separate from the one you're DJing on. If you're DJing on an S9, for example, Pioneer DJ MS9 mixer, you can't have the audio from one channel going to the live stream. It actually like cuts out on one side of the crossfader. So you have to have a separate mixer, and that's what I wanted to show on the live stream. The Yamaha mixers are one option. It gives you a feature called loopback. So that makes it so you can plug up your speakers like you normally would and have that going out to your room. You DJ like normal, but then you've got one sound card that's dedicated through OBS to broadcast the sound of the world. The video is your webcam on your computer, a separate webcam, whatever you want. And the way Twitch works is they only mute the piece of the broadcast that has the copyrighted stuff. There was another question about that. And this actually kind of goes to what my homie Shay was saying in the chat earlier about DJing in weird places. This gives you the opportunity to create a lane that did not exist before. I feel like the beauty of Twitch is that everybody's kind of starting as a DJ right now from ground zero. None of us have, well, maybe a few people out here, maybe a few people in the comments, Facebook, whatever, may have a Twitch following already. I sure as heck didn't. And so I'm trying to make sure I'm establishing that as like a place that people know to go to check for me. Once I realized the gigs were drying up, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take tips. And then fortunately for last month, I was able to make the same amount of money from tips through people that were either friends or complete strangers. I got way more from strangers than I ever expected, and able to make up the same amount plus some that I would have made in DJing my regular club and private events for the month of March. So now I'm just like taking that, rinsing and repeating. This can get real deep in the rabbit hole in the technical side, but just let's not forget, and that's why I wanted to start with that point. Our job is to make people feel stuff with sound. If that's going to a Aldi parking lot and playing for people, if that's going to the edge of your driveway and have a social distancing block party, like those are things that we can do now. And now that the world at large is seeing D-Nice and realize the power of a DJ to do that for people, this is our opportunity to get all the other extra stuff out of the way and just focus on connecting with people through sound, period. If you make people feel stuff with sound, you win.
It's a good point,
That's
Sean.
definitely a good point. It's great advice.
And just to touch on, I saw Sean Shay had asked that earlier. I think even before this happened, you've always got to be looking to find creative outlets to utilize your DJing. And just because something has never been done doesn't mean that it can't be done. And if you have a good idea and you think like, man, no one's ever approached this business in my local town about providing a DJ or being a DJ, you take some of this advice that you've been getting today from all these guys and you apply a little bit of that with a little bit of communication and maybe a little bit of, in the beginning, some allowing a little bit of space to build trust, and you never know where it can go in terms of finding a relationship or finding a venue or finding a path. And quite frankly, if you're stressed out, and it's going to be difficult because you're going to be making bad decisions. Most of the time, us as human beings, we make our bad decisions under stress. So it's really important to try to take that stress away. Use that stress as your motivation, not as your paralyzation. And you can take that as a means to solve your problem. And I think all of us right now can feel that stress. I mean, it's impossible to not say that you're not feeling it. I love to hear stories of what you're saying, where you're like, man, I'm live streaming and it's actually made up for and some from my gigs. That's a really unique, I think for most people, that's a pretty unique situation. But what it's showing is that it's possible. And it doesn't mean that every DJ now needs to go and set up their live stream and get going and open their 24-hour club over here. But what it's doing is saying, find what you're interested in, find what you think could be an avenue for you to fill a void and go after it at 100%, which obviously what Sean has done.
And also, I want to reiterate what Dave said. Don't go live every single day of the week because it pulls away the genuine nature of that. Then you're just like a guy out there on the corner begging for money. You can treat it like a business. You can treat it like a hobby, but to be there all the time, that's just kind of oversaturating. You want to think strategically about the streaming stuff, just like you would not wanting to work Monday through Friday with DJ gigs that pay next to nothing. You want to use the best of your time to be the most effective.
Word. And real quickly, we've gone over the time, but I think right now we're cool with staying here and answering a little more questions and talking a little bit more. But I do know that we have a busy man, as I said before, in Digital Dave, who's probably got some other web stream or DJ set to go to or edit to make or something on his list that he didn't do today. So
I actually, it's funny. Bouncing back to your conversation before it gets late here, I have to go and be a dad for a little bit before my son Champ goes to sleep. So I gotta told him that we'd spend some time together after I was done this. So I gotta get to him.
Thanks, bro.
All right, Dave. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at DJ Digital Dave 1. My website's djdigitaldave.com, but honestly, my favorite thing to send people to, like I was talking about earlier, is my Mixcloud, which is mixcloud.com/DJ Digital Dave. I just put out a 2000s mix last week and had 151 songs in it, I believe, in 80 minutes. So it's just a great big conglomerate of the 2000s. And it has everything in it, from T.I. and Purple Ribbon All-Stars to Taylor Swift and Kelly Clarkson. It's just a kind of all-encompassing journey through the 2000s.
Awesome, man. Well, I've listened to it. It's super dope. If you guys have not, it is a kind of, if you were alive in the 2000s, it will take you through every emotional soundtrack of that decade. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Dave, for being a part of this with us, man. And
For sure. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great night, everyone.
Peace,
Thank you,
peace.
Dave.
And
Thanks,
that
Dave.
dude.
yep.
Once again,
one-
folks, real quick, in case you don't know the list that we're talking about with Digital Dave's list of productive things you can do during the COVID-19 pandemic, just make sure to visit his social media at Digital Dave 1 number 1 or djdigitaldave.com. It's a great list.
Speaking of things that we can do, you know, one of the things that I know I've been trying to do a little bit on the downtime is with my gear, and then we've got our Mr. Fix-It in the house, Miles Money. So, what are some things that people can do just with their gear right now? That's just some good tips to treat it, to take care of it in this downtime.
Well, actually, Dave had hit upon one of the big ones, and some of the stuff that he was doing in the downtime was taking his gear and making sure that everything was clean and fixing it up and making sure that it was presentable. That was one of the things I was going to talk about. Is just I leave like my turntables out full time, so every now and then if I don't cover them or if I'm just not using them, then they get dusty. And one of the things I found when people bring me gear to fix, whenever I take it apart, it's really dusty, and that really messes with the contacts inside of things. So if at all possible, make sure that your gear is covered. Like right now, you can see my turntable back here maybe, and it's not covered because I've actually been using it, but I've got a cover for it. I got a cover for my mixer right back here too. So I recommend doing that kind of stuff, because the best maintenance is always preventative maintenance. Yep. Because by the time it comes to me, if I got to take it apart and I've got to clean a whole bunch of gunk out of it and a bunch of dust and things like that, I'm going to end up charging you for that. That's just another one of those things that, has to happen.
For him.
I've actually had to do that during the winter time. Like I do that every year. Dave's right. Like you have to go through your equipment, like especially like some of the speakers that I use. A lot of them are wooden cabs. So especially the RCF Evox, they're made out of wood. So sometimes you'll see some chips, you'll see some scratches. So buy some paint, buy the
Markers.
They have like speaker. They actually have speaker paint that you can actually buy from Amazon. Bought mine there, and I've had to touch up like gigs, my speakers. So.
The minimal gigs that I've taken my speakers to, probably like 3 or 4 of them, they still get messed up. And it's just sort of a fact of life. So yeah,
even
you're
with
right.
a cover
you just got
on.
to do things.
Even with a cover on.
Even with the cover on them, just like moving them in and out of your car. So that brings me to another point. Is like I said, I like to keep my stuff set up, but a lot of DJs don't have that luxury when you're out gigging with things. So you have to keep putting things in flight cases, taking things in and out of your car, putting it on carts, bashing it into walls and things like that. And just that kind of wear and tear on stuff. I fix that kind of stuff all the time. DJs putting stuff away too quickly after a gig, and they pinch their RCA wires in a flight case or their ground wires or things like that. And, I got to go through and I got to replace that stuff. So, just always be mindful of that kind of stuff. We've got the time. Just make sure, give yourself an extra 5 minutes when you're putting stuff away, just to do it right. Because I don't know how many times I've had to replace RCAs multiple times for people, because they've done that kind of stuff. And, getting on that kind of stuff, like, it's like, maybe like you have a turntable and you say, this isn't working right, but what is wrong with it? You don't know. Is it an RCA issue? Is it an issue with the tone arm? Is it even an issue with your head shells that you're using? And one of the main things that I always do when anybody brings me a turntable to fix is the first thing I do is I hook it up to Serato, because it has that great feature in Serato where you can look in the setup and you can look at the scopes. And if you've never done that, just next time you're in there, just go there. It's always nice to go in there and look at that just to make sure that you have everything optimized anyway. But the scopes will tell you a whole lot about what's wrong with the turntable. And it's always the first place I start.
Hey, Bill,
What's that,
real
Art?
quick, can you
Use the
I know one of my
scopometer
students is
functionality.
watching this, and that's a common question that comes up with my younger students. Can you explain what the scope tells you depending on what cables are plugged in and not plugged in, just to kind of break it down for some of the younger DJs that are just getting used to Serato and timecode?
Sure thing. Yeah, it basically just shows you the signal that's coming through the wires that are being hooked up to your sound card in the mixer. And what you're looking for are two relatively concentric circles that are sort of nice and tight. And you can zoom in and out on it, and when you open it up, you can see that. But what I always find very helpful, and I always go back to, is just, in Google, just type in, like Serato scopes. And it'll basically take you to, there, Art has it up right there for you. That's what you should be looking at. That's a good looking scope on a
That's a
on
good
records
looking
that are
scope
going.
right there.
Sexy looking scopes. Yeah.
Those are-
Sexy.
Nice.
I mean,
circles. All right.
that's the kind of scope that I dream about seeing
Yeah.
with this kind of stuff.
Hey, hey. Bill, calm down.
You need to calm down over there in Australia, buddy. But what I'm saying is like, if something is messed up, those scopes will pretty much give you a good indication of what it is. And like I said, you can go on the forums, and Serato actually has it broken down, and they have pictures of what bad scopes look like and what it means. Like if your left channel's out, your right channel's out, if you have a bad ground, if it's just dust that may be your problem, always the first thing that I do, like I said, I go to the scopes, and then if I find an issue, I always go to the internet, because typically if somebody has an issue, you're going to find it on there. You're not the only one having this issue. So that, sort of brings me to my other point, how adventurous do you want to be about fixing your own gear when you have a problem? Like I said, if you're having a problem with a mixer, like, one channel's out or something like that, you can always look it up online, see if anybody else, like Pioneer S9, I'm not getting sound out of the left channel. Look it up. See if somebody else is having that problem. See if there's an easy fix. Is there a firmware issue with it that people know about? Just stuff like that. And also just sort of as a plug for somebody who does do work for other DJs and creatives and things like that. I always see like like DJs online saying things like, it's like, you're not paying me for the 3 hours that I'm doing your wedding. I'm paying you, you're paying me for like the years of experience that I have, for the music that I have, for the gear that I have, for a specific knowledge set that I have. It's sort of the same way with fixing the gear that you guys use. You're coming to me because I know what I'm doing with it.
He knows
and
how
I've
to
done
solder.
a lot of it.
Do you know how to solder?
Yeah, and I've got the equipment. I can fix this stuff. So, just like you're not out there trying to rip somebody off for your wedding prices, I'm not trying to rip you off for what I'm doing to fix your gear. I'm just, you're paying for the skill set to do that. So just sort of keep that in mind, because, that's the sort of same respect that, that you want to get from your customers. Same respect I want to get from mine.
And all jokes aside as well too, Bill has personally fixed a lot of my equipment.
Same.
And,
Same.
Yeah, well, pretty much everyone, all the panelists here.
I'm trying.
He is worth, if you're out of state, if you're in Jersey, if you're in North Carolina, wherever, it's well worth sending or driving your equipment to him if you don't have someone in your area that's reliable, because trust me, it'll be worth it. Especially if you have some 1200s, 1200s should last you a lifetime. And, I'll attest to Bill's work. He's the man. As much crap as I give him, I love him.
So real
Hey,
quick,
Bill, you had a dude up there that was asking if you could fix his pitch control. I believe it was Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Mercer.
Jeff, I'll make sure to get you that info. That's an easy one. So
that actually is. That's not a bad one. I can do that.
So real quick, guys, we're gonna wind this down. It's that time. We went overtime, but pretty much we're almost done with this one. But we have one last question, and it comes from Casey. So what do you guys recommend for people that are starting out, or maybe just like early in their career? How do they remain sharp when it comes to reading the crowd while you're stuck in this pandemic?
Well, I know for me, that's just kind of I don't know, understanding where, like, the environment that you're in. That's a big one for me. So like, being on live stream, right? You want to kind of understand like what your crowd is, what you're trying to, what environment that they're envisioning themselves in, whatever type of event that they're putting in. So like,
or what crowd you're trying to attract too.
Yeah, that as well. Like those are important questions you have to ask yourself. And it goes back to a point earlier, which is, having to go back and do the work. You know what I'm saying? Look for, different records, you know what I'm saying? Go digging in your crates. You know what I mean? Go find something that you used to listen to in the bus when you're in 8th grade, you know what I mean? In a particular time period, or just think about, the different times where you feel something from your music and what that makes you feel. I feel like that is the best advice I can give as far as like trying to help, like, read your crowd and understand your crowd and, make sure you're not losing them.
And one of the things I tell my students too is, because what's intimidating to them in the beginning is the multitasking, just being able to DJ, mix, talk to people at the same time and read the crowd. You're doing a lot. So confidence is probably a number one thing. Make sure that you're confident with your skills, so that way when it does come to the gut and, staying sharp when reading the crowd, then you can kind of be a more attentive, and like Zach was saying, know your music, know your heaters, know all these things, because that's when it becomes really fun, and also if you're doing a residency, at the same venue every weekend, you're not going to have the same night, it's going to be a different every single time. You could be at the same venue for 10 years, doesn't matter, always going to be different. It could be 99 of the same people and then one person different, it's still a different night, so just there's constantly always going to be a whole bunch of different variables. Keep that in mind. Don't get overwhelmed, and ask questions too. Ask your peers. One of the things that, since we've kind of transitioned into Facebook and Instagram, one of the things probably like 7-8 years ago was on the message board, like, hey, did you guys play this song in your city? What's the reaction? And it was mainly, I think it was on the Serato forums, so just make sure that you're constantly talking. If you're unsure of a particular song, run it by, fellow peers, run it and shoot it to us, any of us on the panel, because now's the time to really cultivate and develop that.
Yeah, and the way I look at it, I usually try to tell I don't tell my students, but I approach teaching people like martial arts in terms of when they ask if they end up coming to see me at a gig and they're like, dude, there's so much going on. How do you maintain? I try to tell them, like, try to find the point to where your skills become reactions. When something comes up, you don't think about it. You don't have to sit there, scratch your head and go, wait, what do I do next? You just kind of have the skill in your back pocket, and like a punch being thrown at your face, you react to it. And that's
how is it?
No, it's like, like Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. So practice. It's okay to practice things like drills, so where you can get them to be like second nature. And just like it's a very basic for anybody starting off. If you look at the DJ mixer, especially nowadays, these things are jam-packed with buttons, knobs, and faders all over. But if you look at the center, right dead center in the middle, there's always going to be that open space for just 3 simple things. 2 volume faders and the crossfader. That area is never packed or stuffed with stuff for a reason. It's like driving a car. You get in your car, not that you're supposed to, but you could make a call, you could fire a text, and what are you doing? You're holding the steering wheel, you gas and brake. There's 3 things. A 10-year-old knows how to drive a car. Not that they're allowed to. So basically get so comfortable with the mixer and the DJ equipment in front of you to where you can do things in second nature form. You can lower volumes, but you're not thinking about it. You're thinking about eating food after you're done working. You're like, what am I going to get to eat? But you're actually DJing.
So there's a few things that I will definitely say in my years. I've always made it a point to read a crowd. If you can't read a crowd as a DJ, you're going to struggle as a DJ first and foremost. And you can't necessarily learn that without playing for a crowd. So lesson number 1 is play for a crowd as much as possible. In case, as you're saying, what can I do right now to sharpen those skills? Back to what we've been talking about with your crates, having your music completely organized to where you find it is half the battle. And then a thing that I see a lot of young DJs do that they don't realize they do, as soon as they mix a song, they're right back into the Serato screen. Well, part of the importance of reading the crowd is after you play that song, you need to see the organic first response of the crowd to that song. And if you mix it and you're looking down at the gear and you mix it and you go out and then you go right here, you've missed all the vital information that's right in front of you of seeing the reaction. I used to play a game when I would go to a club, and it would be like, maybe like 30 or so people that I'm focusing on. And I would try to pick out, how do I make that person move? Or how do I make that couple move? Or how do I make this person move? And trying to figure out what is their sweet spot of a song. What genre are they going to go for? You can look, especially if it's a private event where you've got a myriad of different people, you're going to have to focus on the demographics of what you're seeing. Are there 65% of the men on the dance floor? Or, do you need to get some more of the ladies on the dance floor? Is it a bunch of older people on the dance floor? Or what am I doing? Are you, Gio and I used to talk about this all the time. It's like, even if you're playing at a nightclub, like him and I, we had residencies where we'd been at the same Friday night spot for a decade. And the last thing you ever want to hear is the bartender say to the people like, oh, he's going to play this song to this song to this song to this song, because they've heard you play so many times that they know. The best compliment I've ever received as a DJ is when a bartender says to me, I never know what you're going to play tonight. And I appreciate that. And so if you go in with the set, then you're not reading a crowd. You're going in with what you hope is going to work. You have to lift your head up, use the prepare window in Serato.
Yes.
Sometimes I want to.
I've had a prepare window.
I want to make a mix CD out of what I don't play in my prepare windows. Because my prepare window has like 45 songs in it, and sometimes it gets so big I have to just drag it and make a crate out of it.
Yeah, by the end of the night, you didn't play them, but you threw them in there.
Yeah, what I'm doing is every time I'm going through, you're just throwing songs into the prepare window, like, oh, this is good. I want to remember this for later. It might not be the jam for right now, but I want to make sure that I can go back to it. So back when I first started DJing and I only had vinyl, you were always trying to make sure that you were 2 or 3 records ahead. So you were playing a song now, but you were actually thinking about the song you're going to play 3 or 4 songs from now. And you're trying to figure out how you're going to lead to that. And the last nugget I'm going to leave you with, that is the advice that I got from an older DJ when I was just starting out, that I've taken and I'll take to the grave with me. Play a song that's going to resonate with your crowd every 15 minutes on the precise clock.
Yep. That's definitely an old school trick.
12:30, 12:45, because no one says let's get out of here at 9:08. Everybody looks at and they say, hey, at 11:30 let's bounce. But if you play a great song at 11:30, they're like, yo, and then next thing, hey, I want to get another drink, and next thing they stay for 2 more hours. But you kind of have to use that clock to. It's always going to be a Jedi mind trick on your crowd. You have to stay a chess master. You have to stay ahead of them. So reading a crowd is not only reading what's in front of you, but reading where you're going to be 15 minutes from now.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, are you sure? I was just going to say that there were 3 things in what Chris just said that you could actually practice here at home during quarantine, even though you don't have a crowd. One, you can practice your quick mixing in case when you do go back in the clubs, if you play a song that totally tanks, get out of it really fast, like be able to do that. So you can practice that at home without having a crowd in front of you.
True that.
2, try to practice when you do practice your mixes at home, try to use different songs every single time, or at least a different order every single time, so you don't get caught up in the same, like, oh, well, I know these 2 sound good together, so I'll just do it every single time. So you don't kind of get stuck in those ruts. And then the 3rd one was what he was talking about, playing a song that resonates with your crowd every 15 minutes. You can, play a game with yourself, invent a crowd in your mind, figure out, songs that would resonate with your imaginary crowd. And as you're mixing, practicing your quick mixing and everything, every 15 minutes, keep an eye on the clock, every 15 minutes, throw in a song that resonates with the imaginary crowd. So all of those things you can still practice and get those skills really sharp. So when you do come in front of like real people, you might be better prepared than if you had just been, you know, collecting dust these couple months.
The way it's been brought to me, you know, as I've been doing this as a profession, the way I was brought up, it was like, hey, don't judge people. I've always been judged. I know what it's like to be judged as well, and
They're with you, man.
I try to live my life reminding myself, like, yo, you're being judgmental. You know, I always, if I catch myself, I tell myself. But in reality, when it comes to reading a crowd, you're kind of using that card. You kind of have to look at a group of strangers and go, what do I think, based on what they look like, what they're saying, what they're doing, they want to hear, you know? And it's weird that way for me. So I basically just try to treat it, say at a wedding especially, I always try to treat it like a game. If there was a table, you know, there's always that table that won't get up, you know? And you're like, what can I play to get that table to at least like sing along or something, you know? And it becomes a game for me for the rest of the night. I'm like, you know, everybody else is easy because they're moving. So I'm like, what can I get? And if I can get them to do it, to do something, then I've kind of, you know, I've made my night a little bit more fun, you know? But I also kind of don't feel as bad about judging them as strangers because I just try to treat it like a game. But at the end of the day, you know, usually when you're judging people, you're gonna hit 50-50. You're gonna hit or miss. So this is the same exact thing, but usually with music, it's a lot more fun because, and to get back to what Kim was saying, if it doesn't work, learn how to mix out of these things quickly and go on with your next guess. And then as you practice that method, you'll surprise yourself on how well you can predict what people like to hear. So we're almost like magicians too. We're like, hey, I know what you like to hear. You know,
psychologists,
what were you saying, Isaac?
Mind readers.
No, I was just gonna say with what you were saying with the every 15 minutes, and also what Kim and Art were saying. This is again just to add on to the social experiment side of things. I think for how can I put it? Yeah, we are reading a crowd. Yeah, we are judging some people. There's so many variables that we're not going to be able to touch on within this. And so like Chris was saying, you have to get into the trenches, not just for your gut, but just the social side of it. The other thing I was going to say was capacity, you know, understanding the timing of the night, 9 p.m., 12 a.m., 2 a.m. Understanding that, you know, when Chris says that every 15 minutes, that doesn't mean you'd start at 9 p.m. when the room is empty. You have to be mindful of that in particular too, and just know that like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll start that every 15-minute thing once, you know, venues at like 40 or 50% capacity. Then once you start climbing up the hill, then you see it start to grow. Then it's kind of like that. So there's no like, nothing is gospel. Everything is always changing. What we're expressing and is basically our experience, and a lot of our experience is the most consistent with what's happening. That's all.
So for people listening and watching at home, basically those 15 minutes, you break down your whole set, your whole entire night into 15-minute sets, and you want like your night to go in peaks and valleys. So, you know, usually like that last part of that 15-minute set is usually a banger to keep them in there, and then you start lowering it down, and then keep doing it all throughout the whole night. But time's up. I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. What do you guys think? Any last words?
Well, I would just say again to everybody that was in the webinar and also on social media, thanks for joining us here to just discuss some, you know, some camaraderie of DJing, and you know, we're not necessarily you know, solving everything tonight, but I think we're going to be back again either next week or in the near future. We can dive a little bit more into some of the topics. So, Gio, maybe what we can do is create like a post, and people can put some questions or things that they want to hear, and we can dive in a little deeper on some of the topics we talked about tonight. Maybe some other ones that maybe you wanted to ask or see a deeper dive on. I know some people are asking this to have a full breakdown of Sean J's I mean, that's like a whole other
Yeah.
world that we can live in with that. So there's a lot of really great stuff that we've touched on, and basically let's just keep the conversation going. Let's spread it. And Gio, this is also going to be saved, right? And we'll be able to...
so pretty much like anybody that's missed it or came in late, everything is being streamed out on Facebook, YouTube. So this whole webinar is saved onto Facebook and YouTube, even on Instagram Live. It's going to be saved for like 24 hours. So you really have no excuse of not checking it out. If you see something that you like on there, just post a comment on all the chats that we have open. Let us know your suggestions. Who knows? We can probably do more webinars. Maybe turn this into a podcast. Maybe.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, you guys. I think we're gonna review the data and everything, and we'll come back at another time.
We'll have a lessons learned meeting.
Yes.
Still a lot to talk about. So
once Art turns in the TPS report,
I'm gonna need you to come in.
All right, guys.
That
was great. So once again, folks, make sure to visit beatrefinery.com. If you want to learn how to DJ with all of us, go enroll for some classes. A lot of our sites are doing virtual lessons. So pick out your favorite person in this lineup and ask for, instruction, one-on-one lessons with them. But yeah, beatrefinery.com, and we're pretty much out. We're good to go.
We out.
Peace, guys.
Peace.
Later.
Peace, world.
Music is life. Keep it going, homies.
I'll let it rock.
So don't forget, check us out at facebook.com/beatrefinery, youtube.com/beatrefinery, instagram.com/beatrefinery. Bye, guys.